start snickering in commission meeting.
All right, at 6 p.m. Tuesday, April 14th, we will call to order the Mount Pleasant Planning Commission meeting. We'll have Ms. Johnston do the invocation and Ms. Graham do the pledge.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this opportunity to get together this evening to discuss planning for Mount Pleasant. We just pray that you'd be with us as we make those decisions, and we just thank you for all the folks that are here and all the folks that are listening on Facebook. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We got everybody here tonight. Approval, correction of the minutes from prior meeting from 3:10, meeting minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from prior meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Completion review of unfinished business from prior meetings. There is none. Any special reports from either of you two gentlemen for today before we get started?
None at this
None
time.
at this time. All right, number 7, new business. Director.
New business. Public hearing. So if we want to have, there were several people that signed up on the public hearing. We want to go ahead and have a public hearing.
Up to y'all. And you can read what it's about, I guess. Go ahead.
Mount Pleasant Planning Commission will conduct a public hearing to review and discuss proposed amendments to the Mount Pleasant zoning ordinance pursuant to section 4.7. The proposed amendments include the addition of a large lot zoning district, addition of a planned unit development, PUD acronym, provision, updates to the annexation section, and various miscellaneous edits.
And this will be up to y'all if you want us to go over what the changes are. It's only certain sections that are substantively changed, added, or omitted. Then there are various little changes like references or tables or typos or grammar issues throughout that rather than going through and identifying each one, it was easier for our record to repeal and replace. But I would like I said, I outlined what those changes are, and I can read them real quick, but then Sloan is here from KCI, and she can go over the substantive changes for the new provisions and the things that are kind of the bigger items, if you will. So what I've got in the resolution is that we're adding a new section 4.7 related to annexation. We're adding a new section 6.5, creating a new residential district for large lot residential and agriculture. We're adding a new section 8.5, which creates a PUD planned unit development overlay district. Adding a section, amending section 6.1 for R1 low density residential to allow accessory dwelling units as permitted uses in the R1 zone. Amending section 6.3 R3 high density residential by amending the description of R3 to better reflect the city's desires for this zoning district. Amending section 7.4 IL light industrial by removing certain permitted uses from this district so that this district has less intense uses and differentiates more from heavy industrial zoning. We are amended references, corrections, including internal section references as well as grammar and phrasing updates to improve clarity and minimizing misinterpretations throughout the zoning ordinance. We're updating the numbering to incorporate the new sections, adding definitions to make it more clear, updating tables and figures, and removing certain sections related to irrigation, certain landscaping, and tree specifications and planning that we felt were too strict. So that's the very, very high-level overview of what this is. And I'll turn it over to Sloan, if that's okay with y'all, to kind of give a more detailed overview.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good.
So the main 3 sections that are added, the first one is the annexation section, and you didn't have an annexation section in the zoning ordinance, the one that you previously had, and we felt that this was good to add to help clarify the whole process and make it easier for you guys when annexations come to you
to figure out like what the findings of fact are, how you can decide if the annexation is gonna better the city, and just making sure that the correct process is followed. We pulled the process from Tennessee Code Annotated, so it follows all of the Tennessee statute. So the main reason for that section is mainly just to help you guys with your decision making when it comes to annexations in the city.
Second, you'll remember during the last annexation that came before you, our zoning text really was silent about annexations. All it said was, you had to zone a property simultaneous with annexation. We had to go, everything went back to state law. This still tracks the state law, but like she said, it's just giving one place that you can look that kind of gives some more information. One question that I have for y'all to consider and think about is, there is some, when somebody submits an application for annexation, they have a right to do that. There's a process for it. It comes to y'all. There is some, suggestion that a best practice is to put that in front of the commission, the city commission, at some point before or during that process. And I guess my question is, how do y'all feel about being the first to see and consider the annexation application? Definitely.
Oh, no, I was just, I do have a thought on it, but I think the mindset behind it is going to the city commission first. Do you want you guys to entertain a plan of services? So it kind of puts it in their court, because you go through all that process and it gets to them and they're like,
Right.
or yes, right?
Right.
So was that kind of the thought?
It's kind of like chicken or the egg, though, really.
Yeah.
Has
Everything has
to
to come
come
through
through.
y'all first. And the way that, honestly, the state law says is that it comes through y'all and then it goes to the city commission. If there's any change in the plan of services, it comes back to y'all. That's a process you're familiar with as well. But like MTAS, our advisory service, they put out this best practice suggestion. And their best practice suggestion is that it goes to the city commission. When if I submit an application for annexation of my property, that it has to come to y'all. That's what But we would take it to the city commission and just say, we've received this at the planning department. We need a plan of services for this property. Can you direct the city staff to make it? And then it comes.
So it adds an extra step, really.
Yeah, and I don't know.
Because then it'd still have to go back to them to be voted on at some point. That's just for the plan of services.
Yes.
Well, that's fine with me. Let them have it first.
It would just be like,
I like it.
and we've talked about that kind of in like I said, roundabout ways. I do think that there's a benefit of like the commission having an input on it first before all get it. For procedural reasons, but also we have to balance like the applicant has a right to go through the process, and we don't want to put it straight to the commission and the commission say
What are other communities doing? Are they using,
nobody
nobody?
else goes to the city commission
First.
first. But that is, like I said, it's listed as a best practice. So there is other ways that we could do it without putting it specifically in our process. We could still be more direct with having like the city commission direct the plan of services, and leave this exactly the way it was. But that is something that like we've kind of struggled with internally, and I wanted y'all's input.
I guess ultimately, I don't care as long as it comes to us with the plan of services.
Yes.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
I mean,
that's
a
the
complete
main
plan
thing.
of services is the
Right.
main thing, whether it has to stop somewhere first or not, I don't care, but they need to have a plan of services when it gets
If
there.
the commission says no, is that it?
I don't think the commission really can say no.
Right.
So they would just hear it and say,
But it would give everybody a little bit more insight about what would be successful. It's kind of a courtesy.
I guess, because ultimately they have the decision on it
They
anyway.
have the
We're just
decision on it,
just a
that's right.
recommendation.
But we do have to hear an application.
Right.
We can't just say we're not going to take an application.
Sure.
Let them look over it, and if it's a good deal, pass it up like a green one. We don't have all the stuff they would have to make that decision on. Like,
I'm more suggesting that the city commission would be aware that that an application's been submitted, and for us to ask y'all, what kind of plan of services do you want to see? And then direct your staff to make that plan of services. So, but you see,
Sure.
that's,
Right.
this is the,
But yes, it's the chicken or the egg. I mean, it really is. As long as the plan of services
So
comes
if
to
we
us
say
complete,
we
I don't
like
care where it
go
stops.
back to them and they like, well, no, I don't, you know, we don't like what they suggested. It's still like in their court, we might want to start it.
yeah, they have the expertise to,
Yeah, they know the
to look
experts
at 'em.
here. We're not, we're just
but
going
y'all
by
are,
what they tell us.
but you're the lawmakers.
We are the lawmakers, but they tell us.
And y'all could go against what we say.
We might.
And have. Well,
And will again. I
will
can
again. So I don't have a big
Okay.
issue with it either way. I don't care. So I mean, does anybody else have a issue?
no.
I'm good either way too.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I like what Corey thinks.
No, we don't.
You said it.
The attorney.
Yeah, we're not the public comment yet. You missed the first part. We're gonna go through all the changes first, and then we're gonna open it up. And if you want to sign up to speak, the sheets. Right.
She's.
Oh, good point.
Good point.
Good point. Willie, be quiet.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. We
Throw
love.
me under the bus like that.
Sorry, go ahead.
And then the next new section that was added was a new residential district. It's the large lot residential / agricultural district. And the main reason we implemented this was mainly to serve a lot of properties you guys already have. It has a 5-acre minimum, and then it also will allow for residential with agricultural uses on the same properties. So this kind of was just to help serve mainly what you guys already have, and then also if new things do come up. And then
So,
the
quick question before we go further with that. So will we take the existing ones that are R1 and make them RA?
It's a different zone.
Another one, we already have people with R1s that have cows and 5 acres, but
sure.
would they not transfer to a RA when that happened?
I would think they would need to come in and request.
Request that.
they would have to rezone.
Yeah, the way
rezone.
that
Okay,
this is.
so I mean, it
designed,
wouldn't be automatic. Okay.
No.
nothing
Just-
that we're proposing today affects the
Thanks.
map.
Gotcha, okay.
This is strictly the text. And so if
So
somebody.
somebody would have to come in and request their property to be
Yeah.
rezoned
rezoned to
for RA.
this one, yeah.
Gotcha.
And the reason for that, there's been quite a few that we've had to take boards on in appeals, because of the structures, accessory structures. 10 acres, 2,500 square feet is the maximum, really wasn't enough. So that's the reason this kind of evolved, because we do have quite a few large lots in the city.
Yeah, they're zoned as R1.
Correct, they're zoned R1, and we have other large lots that are potentials. So that's the logic behind this.
And then the final big new section is the planned unit development overlay. So a lot of cities are implementing these into their zoning ordinance. And the main thought behind it is it can be used as a tool for you guys and the city commission to work with developers in creating more, so you can kind of go back and forth with them and kind of create harmonious spaces that would have a base zoning, like this zoning districts would be pulled from your zoning ordinance, but then it would have a program book that goes along with the plan development that would lay out things like architectural regulations, different regulations on like design guidelines. And and then also it can incorporate like residential and commercial in one area to kind of create more harmonious spaces for people. So it kind of is just a way to kind of get more mixed use development in the city.
And I'll piggyback on that, so many times, like when somebody comes in with a rezone, it's when it happens most often for y'all. When they comes in with a rezone, they come with an unofficial site plan, right? They show you a picture of something that they want, and they show you a layout, and they present it to you like, this is what I'm going to build. And we have to have this conversation and say, no, they're asking for this zone. They can build anything that fits in that zone. They are not tied to building this thing.
Sure.
But a PUD is the tool that would help y'all say, well, we don't like this thing, but what if you put a park right here and you can kind of trade spaces, and then that overlay becomes part of the zoning for that property. So it is a tool to help y'all get what you were kind of promised or negotiate. And y'all don't currently have that.
Right, yeah, like the TSC site has 3 different zonings.
Right, and we had to be
Right,
very
had to be
creative,
creative
right?
to do
And
that.
like, we had to have all these different zones in order to make that right there, but it's really, it all started as one property. So a PUD would have been the tool that would have got that done.
Makes sense.
It also keeps changing.
Right, they show houses and they can't build apartments on it.
Right.
Right,
That, it regulates them to
Regulates
that
them to-
plan. It would have
that
to
plan
go
of
back and-
services, all of that.
Yeah, they would have to
Yeah.
get an
I like
amendment
that.
for you guys
That's
to
something we've
change
needed, yeah.
anything in the program book.
And I believe, if I'm correct, it moves on to the next owner. Whatever was approved for that stays with that property.
Yes.
So that,
Zoning.
Yeah, zoning.
right, so they can't come in and tear up the
PUD.
sidewalks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What do you call it with the book,
Program book?
program? book?
Program book.
Yeah, any changes to the program book would have to come through you guys as an amendment.
Right, and all that's still subject to public hearing and everything else, so it's all
Yeah.
out in the open when we're deciding all
Right,
that.
this would
Okay.
just put it as a possibility that somebody could ask for.
Well, I think it's a good thing, I mean, because we do have some multi-use properties and we
Yeah.
get weird stuff from time to time.
And honestly, we have struggled with this particular issue the entire time I've been here, you know,
Yeah.
because Mount Pleasant only has the 3, you know, or really 6 zones, I guess, and people do want to say, this is what I want to do, and they have these intentions of it, and y'all agree with it, but we just didn't have the tool. This is a tool that y'all have needed and don't.
I think the thing you say the most is just because they say they're gonna do that,
Right.
does not mean they're gonna do that.
Right, and I'm not trying to be
Yeah,
Sure.
you're right.
you
Yeah.
know, harsh on
Yeah.
applicants.
Right.
But it is true, and, you know, I don't even think people do it on purpose. Like, they might intend to build something and they get into construction and it's not what they thought, or, you know, they sell it because it's too expensive or whatever, and the next person might have.
Yeah.
This would be, in my opinion, this,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a glorified site plan,
yes,
a true, for the.
but it
for-
incorporates. zoning.
Incorporates zoning,
Yeah.
right.
And I like the thought of it's an overlay. It
Yeah.
kind of goes on and overlays the property. This is what will be there.
And then besides that, there were just some smaller changes to a couple other sections. We added accessory dwelling units as a permitted use in the R1 residential district, mainly because those are your bigger lots and they provide space to have those accessory dwelling units on them. And then the R3 high density residential district, the description of it was updated a little bit to incorporate more text about how the city wants to make it more connected to other places and promote walkability. So kind of just better describing what the city wants for that district and what the intended use is. And then also some uses were removed from the light industrial section that kind of seemed like they were too heavy of uses for that area. And then they still remain in the heavy industrial. So those uses are still allowed in the city, just only in the heavy industrial. And then, like Corey was saying, other changes included references, because once we added sections, everything like numbers and references all got mixed around. So we had to update all that, some grammar updates. We added some definitions to include things from like the PUD overlay section and the annexation section. But besides that, I think those were the main changes, and then just all those little things throughout.
I did find one that didn't transfer through. We didn't add the new RA district to 5.2, I think it was. Did you
I think
get
we
that?
fi- we
Did you,
fixed
did you
that.
get, okay, yeah, I called Chris about
It was
that
too,
last
I'd
week.
already
Added,
had
yeah,
that
that
published,
was
but-
right.
Yeah,
But
we
it's,
updated that after.
Yeah,
been correct.
because there's a lot of times in the old book, you go look for this section, it's
Yeah.
not there.
Mhm.
Yeah, it just happened. That's, questions, comments from anybody up here before we open it up for, public hearing?
Sir, good.
All right, this time we'll open this up to the public hearing, and first person we have that signed up is Mr. Lacy. You know the drill, though.
1201 Shackelford Drive. I'm inside Mount Pleasant city limits. Just a couple quick things. The PUD thing, totally agree. The only thing that's worrying me is the R3. I didn't have time to read the 100 pages of whatever. But I know King sold the property where TSC and those 300 homes are going. And I know he's going to try to sell the property across the highway and turn that into a subdivision. So I'll be here when that comes up because I live right across the road from that. I know y'all want to grow, but I don't want to see step systems. If you're going to do that, they need to bite the bullet and pay to get sewer hooked up out there and not try to bypass it with some baloney. So, like I said, the PUD thing, that's an awesome idea because it locks them in to where they had to do what they said they were going to do. But, like I said, I wish I'd had time to read the 100 pages of this so I knew exactly instead of just like brief overview of everything, but I appreciate everything you guys are doing. Thanks for your
All right,
work.
thank you, Mr. Lacy.
You want me to read the section of R3 that was
Sure.
changed?
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
So, Mr. Lacy, the part of R3 that I think you said you're concerned about, the change was R3 zone is intended to promote a connected and pedestrian-friendly environment and is traditionally located adjacent to downtown commercial areas. R3 zone is now recommended for expansion into other suitable areas where higher density living could enhance community vitality and connect more areas to the downtown. That was the intent of the change.
Yeah, we didn't update any of like the density or anything. That all is the same. It was mainly just the description
So
of
it
how,
still has to be
yeah.
connected to downtown.
I think connected to an area. And we can,
I guess it's never really in stone that it's had to be connected to downtown. It's recommended that it is. So there are other commercial districts in the community that aren't downtown. So
The other side.
but it's the section R, or 6.3, if you want to just zoom into that part.
Ms. Martin?
Do I have to say my name and address?
Yes, ma'am.
Katie Martin, 206 South Cherry Street. It changed at the county, so I don't know. I don't really have anything. I like the PUD idea, but also I feel like if used with bad intentions, it could also like skirt around spot zoning. And so I think it's a double-edged sword, but it's still better than having zero control over rezoning efforts. I am opposed to the city council hearing site plans first, and that's because I think that the planning commission should hear it, recommend it or not, and then it goes to the city council. That way the city council is not setting the tone to the planning commission. And I just think that's a fair thing, in my opinion. So that's all I have. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. Mr. Bork?
Anybody who has a pool in the springtime, they know it. It's been over. Am I limited to 3 minutes? We have so few people here, because I like to have 2 points.
Oh.
And I can shorten it by looking up here and forgetting my notes. I'm very familiar with PUDs. They've been used for many, many years across the country. The positive side is, and I'm looking over to Pam because I've had some conversation with her about concerns, and I've heard it echoed tonight about the quality, having control over the quality of the project, and it not disappearing as soon as you approve it as an R3, the way that it used to happen. You lose control. I've seen it produce very good results with beautiful projects, particularly large projects. Smaller ones here and there. Although the other side is a criticism that it's used as a bypass to get around more restrictive zoning. So if the city leaders are responsible in doing, my opinion, doing their job and using the PUD as leverage to say, okay, if you really want to get the higher density that 5,000 square foot minimum allows, then let's talk, and you get what you want. It's give and take, and you end up with something that carries on to the next owner if you have that problem. The problem is, back to the R3 language change, and this is the first time I've heard anybody mention it tonight. It was not in any of the staff summary. It wasn't highlighted in any of the stuff that I could see. I may be wrong, but I think it just wasn't touched on. I'm not sure which category it would have fallen in the summary. But that's a critical change. It's not a small change. And I'm going to read it again, and thank you for reading it before for Mr. Lacy. It says, while traditionally located adjacent to downtown, traditionally located, commercial areas to support vibrant local business and active pedestrian environments, the principles of R3 district may also be applied in other suitable areas where high-density living can enhance community vitality, and the other page, and infrastructure efficiency. Translation, if the city council, if you guys, if the city council commission wants to say, we think that this enhances living, community vitality, and we also think that it promotes infrastructure efficiency. One's almost a slam dunk because high density almost always translates into more efficiency from the standpoint of infrastructure. That's a given. And the other one, nobody can argue. It's their opinion. So basically what has happened is you have taken away, or if this is adopted, you've taken away the teeth of R3 altogether. If you're going to be using the PUD to get people to go with a PUD in order to get your input, an input that has some teeth and has some sustainability, can pass from owner to owner, and you can get what you want through that, when you make the change in R3 that's being proposed, you're undercutting it because you're reducing the bar for the city commission to object. Because based on this latitude, a developer can say, how are you objecting to this? We think it enhances the community. We think it's more efficient. So these are conflicting components of the new ordinance. And I think if the R3 change goes through the way it is, it's going to undercut your efforts to do exactly what you talked about tonight. The second thing is on the annexation. I saw a provision there that I'm not familiar with in the cities I've worked with. They may have had them, I just didn't notice them. That under a referendum, if you can have a citywide referendum, which I'm very familiar with, particularly when it's a large area that's being annexed, and also what I call an owner's referendum, where just the people who are in the affected annex area can. So I think a citywide is a tool that can be used. It's a little awkward when you're talking about smaller projects, but it's a way for the city to have, as a whole, to have a voice in what's happening in major annexations. But I think there's a danger if you do that local referendum that you get forced into doing something that you don't need to do. And I don't know the legal requirements that you guys have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ford.
Thank you.
That's everybody that signed up. Mr. Evans, you want to speak tonight? Please. There. Let me get you to sign in. And
No problem.
thank you, sir.
Brandon Evans, 203 South Locust Street. I really only have a tiny bit to add. Just kind of piggyback on what Lee was saying concerning the R3 language. I think overall, I think it's clear that we need some type of revitalization of our zoning ordinances to help things be a little bit more clear, help be more straightforward. But the only thing I really want to say is that I do think that the R3 language is a little bit ambiguous to where it does allow it to where it's kind of like just up to whatever we think. So when you have language like other suitable areas, which isn't really decided, like what are other suitable areas, what are considered other suitable areas, I would think if we were to put something in there, maybe within relation to commercial, or I don't know what you would put in there, but it was like what are considered other suitable areas for R3. And so when you start putting you don't want to get like so specific to the letter to where it becomes, you know, too strict to where you can't ever do anything. I completely understand that. But you don't want it to be so ambiguous where it seems like essentially, depending on who's reading this, it could go anywhere. And so I think it just needs to, I don't know exactly how the language needs to be shored up a little bit to make it seem like, okay, as a person who's reading this as a citizen, I could say, when I'm walking through my town, I could say, okay, R3 might go here. You can't go here. It is what it is. Like, I understand where the potential vision of our city could be based off of that zoning description. This doesn't really give me any understanding of where R3 could go or not go. With the whole 247 thing, you know, one of the things people came up was the ordinance says downtown, you know, and I understand, but, you know, I've seen cities where R3 zoning isn't necessarily connected to downtown and it still worked. So I understand you need flexibility to be able to have R3 somewhere. I don't know where exactly, but I just think the language needs to be more specific to help people who might get upset understand where things may go or not go, and so that there's a little bit better understanding of that. The PUD, like I said, I think the PUD overall is going to be good as long as you have good actors, kind of like what he was saying. It could potentially be used in different ways, but I think as long as the process is open, there might be some accountability there, but that's all I really have to say.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
guys.
Mr. Evans. Nobody else has signed up. Did anybody else want to speak tonight? Then we'll close the public comment section of this. Can you clarify on some of the questions Mr. Berg had
Yeah,
about
so,
annexation?
I think that we're having a misunderstanding. There's only two ways to annex. The first is by owner consent. That's if all of the owners in the area consent and request the annexation. The second one is a referendum by the city.
So the owner's consent on 247 was just that specific property owner. It's not all the owners in the area. It's all the owners of a specific property,
If the owners, if all of the people that
which is the way it is now.
That's correct.
Right, okay.
It tracks the state law. It's not a new process.
Okay. So none of that's new.
No.
Right, it's not all the area property owners, it's all the owners of that property in
Correct.
request. Okay.
That is already the state says that you can annex by owner consent. And owner consent is by all the owners consenting that are owned in the property that's requested to be.
Can I just add, does that obligate the city for providing service?
So it's the same. That's the process that we just went through with the 247. It was an annexation by owner request, owner consent. And so then it goes to the
Planning Commission.
Planning Commission with a proposed plan of services, and then the commission has to approve. They have to recommend, and the commission has to approve a plan of services to serve that area.
So if the city decides it's not feasible for
Correct. That's right.
The main difference between the two annexation processes is mainly just who submits the annexation.
Which is the way it is now. We've just put it in the book,
That's right.
explaining
So-
exactly the way it's done now.
There-
We just didn't have it in the book.
There's a lot of confusion just as annexation generally, and all of you know, you were here. But originally, years and years ago, cities could just annex. They could just say, I like that piece of property, it would be good for me, therefore I'll have it. And so they would annex it, and they would put forth some plan of services that may or not really be a plan of services, and that was how it was annexed. Again, not to bring it up again, but the 247, there was a piece of property in that area that was already within the city limits of the city of Columbia, because it had been annexed by them back pursuant to these older laws. Several years ago, but not that many, we've had multiple changes to this section of the Tennessee Code over the past 5 years, but you have been able to annex by owner consent, for several years, and that's really the only way, or this referendum. The referendum is the other option.
And that's
I don't
citywide,
know
right?
anyone that's done a referendum.
just suggest you go back to the ordinance, the city. That's in draft. is they show it as under consent referendum, and they split the referendum methods. If they could use the local only and the city, or just the local only. It's up to the city.
Okay. But we'll look at it, and I put it in my notes, and we'll look at it. I'm happy to talk to you afterward, and we can look at it together, so you can tell me exactly what section you're talking about.
The ability to dialogue.
What about the other comment he had about the PUD and then the R3 separate? For the PUD, you have some type of protection if you zone it a certain way.
I mean, I think that I understand what everyone's saying. I think with zoning is one of the few things that you and the commission have discretion on. You know, like a site plan, if a site plan comes to you and it matches the wall for the site plan, you approve it whether you like it or not. That's how it goes. But zoning gives you discretion. And so I think R3, all of them, they have, you know, the first section that says what that area, what that zone is supposed to be for. And that's kind of your guidance to help you decide what's appropriate. So I agree that this language does give you more discretion, but you've always had discretion in interpreting. So there's probably things that we could reword to make it more specific. I mean, I liked the suggestion about defining what Mr. Evans said, what a suitable area is, you know? I mean,
And from a personal standpoint, 2 or 3 areas are like that for me. Over by the schools, I think was a good place because you can make that area walkable. There's parks, those kind of things. The closer you are to things like that, the higher density makes sense. In the commercial area, some places at Hamilton Court that would make sense that are already high density. If they wanted to do a changeover of some of the things there, because you already had some commercial base. So, and you could do some sidewalks where you could do walkability and stuff. But, you know, there's probably some other areas, but that's 2. As all of y'all know, I'm not a big fan of going out and annexing property and making it something else. I think there's plenty of property, my personal opinion, inside the city limits of Mount Pleasant already. And there are some areas that would be suitable for R3 that are not downtown, in my opinion. So.
And another part of that, and I may be kind of going off a little bit, but the part in the R3 description about like utilities. As y'all know, like we're doing lots of work on all of our utilities within the city, but they just don't reach that far.
Sure.
And some of the places that are compatible, the most compatible with the R3 description, are not compatible with utilities that would support an R3 zone. So we do have that other kind of need to have our higher density in different places in order to increase our infrastructure, because that is one of the only times that we can, as a city, require somebody else to build your utility for you. So that's another reason I think that part is beneficial to y'all. But yeah, no.
And I agree. I think if we do it correctly, I think it is very beneficial to the betterment of the city.
So I think that was probably the reason for that part being added into that section of that description, because we do see that restriction with R3 and utilities. Yeah, we think this is a great place to put R3 high density, but we don't have utilities here to support.
And personally, I would like to see the city be able to provide the majority of the services. And I don't know that we probably don't need to codify that or anything, but I mean, if you can only apply 2 services of the 6 we supply, why are we even looking at it?
And that was, again, not advocating.
Without beating the same dead horse. But that's just the way, you know, it should make sense, and some things just haven't, but that's still their right to ask for it.
Yeah, and I think that the way the city combats that is that we take more control over a plan of services from the beginning. And that's kind of where I was coming from with, like, do we need some more input from the legislative body before we do that? You know, because if we can't just tell, as staff doesn't have control over people's applications, people's plan of services, you know, we need guidance from the legislative body and for all, as we are putting forth something. So that we have more ownership over it.
Same way. Voters. By the railroad track. Then, hey, you can do it.
That's what she had said.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's areas in town that do make sense, and that's the one time we can have developers pay for the infrastructure, so.
Yes.
That's already part of the process when we can. So they're paying for a lot of stuff out at TSC. I mean, sewer lines being redone and things out that way, and
Yeah, that's our process, is that if you want to build something where we don't have utilities, that you have to pay for it out there. The city can, if we feel like it's in the best interest of the whole, contribute to that or make some sort of trade-off with utility, with infrastructure. But generally, yes, we say that they build it.
So what would be a good example of whether it's something we've already experienced or something that you've seen out there where it would make sense for the commission to see something first before going to the planning commission? Because I'm struggling with what's the benefit of that.
you are a representative from that body, so.
I know.
yeah.
I'm trying to figure that out. Don't look at me. I'm just
I would think if I was an applicant and I said, like, I want to annex this property into the city, and I would like to serve it this way. I'd like for y'all to serve it, have these utilities. And we take it to the commission and just say, hey, here's what a request is. And the commission gets up there and says, like, we would take this, but absolutely not unless it's public water, public sewer, this density, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's what we're looking for. Then your staff can put together a plan of services that matches that. And if the applicant says, that's not what I'm not willing to move forward with that, then maybe they back out and we didn't waste everyone's time.
Yeah.
That's kind of.
But they would still have the right to come before us anyway, even if,
Yeah.
if the commission said.
They would still
Right.
have, and that's where I struggle. I don't want to put an extra step, but I do think sometimes like a little bit of
Guidance.
a guidance is really good, especially for staff. Like I'm thinking about this more from us than what.
I'm in trouble. But I've come to the realization and education and learning from the past is that someone presents a step system and there's the capabilities of sewer connection there. No, anything will make it to y'all.
Right.
And I'm
Yeah.
probably wrong with saying
No.
Well,
that. It's not going
What
to make
everybody's
But
thinking.
what I'm looking for
It is.
is like, we can tell applicants that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean a whole lot coming from us as it does coming from the legislative body that's in the city. Like,
Right, I wasn't a big fan of Columbia supplying the water to the other project either. I mean, if we can't supply, 60-70% of the services, why should it be in the city limits?
Let me rephrase
Yeah.
that. So if it has to go and they have to see it, there would be a recommendation from staff that no, on a step system, and when there's capabilities of connecting to a brand new wastewater treatment plant.
Sure.
you're not.
Go ahead, Willie.
Could you not say that, Philip, as we all be or whatever, that if they can't supply all this stuff, if they can't hook up to our sewage line or our water system, then it's a no for them. They don't even go any further than that.
That's a policy that y'all would have to put in place.
Right.
But
Y'all can put that policy in place, right, as the legislative body for the community.
yeah,
That
but
way,
Right.
they already know, if y'all ain't willing to hook up, then it's already a no for them.
it's still,
They have a right to come, but.
they have a right to.
Yes, they're still
Yeah,
gonna
Yeah.
they
apply.
already know.
But
You can't-
But they don't have the right to get a favorable recommendation from staff.
Sure.
Right.
so we have conversations openly with applicants and say what we think would be best and what would work. But that doesn't mean that changes what their application that,
Right.
Sure.
you know, like, we know, we've been sitting here, we know what everyone wants, but we don't get to go pick what an applicant requests. And we just have to put forward what the request is and support it and then go from there. If we can't, staff cannot just tell people no.
I understand that, I just.
We can say, we don't think it's gonna work, and then, but you have a right to move forward.
Sure.
You know, and honestly, that's what we've done, that's what we've been doing, that's what happens, and we still get applications. So what I'm wanting for, I'm considering myself as staff, is like, if y'all absolutely do not want to hear an annexation that doesn't have X, Y, and Z,
Sure.
you know, criteria, then I would kind of like to nip that before
Right.
we go through
Do all those
five
steps.
public hearings.
That's right.
And, you know, but I don't know that you can know that at the beginning. So that's the kind of, it does need to be studied by the planning commission. So I just was wanting some kind of heads up guidance from the city commission to say, like, we've heard this, we do want to see it served like this. Staff put together that proposal, and if that's the case, then send it through. That's all I'm saying. And it doesn't have to be part of this zoning ordinance to be y'all's practice. This is a ever evolving state law process as well. And we're trying to make it simpler.
Because isn't the county redoing their stuff right now too, as far as what their growth plan is, or what
The county growth.
county, yeah, their boundaries and stuff too. Yeah.
And I hesitate to say it, but there is some, Sloan probably knows that it's in the House floor right now about annexation. It's passed the Senate, but I don't know enough about it to even speak about it, but I know they're changing it again, possibly in this legislation session.
So yeah, so we're here just as much as anything, just asking for like guidance, bear with us. Like we want as many people involved in the process as possible, but we also don't want to waste people's time.
Right.
Like,
Thank you.
and
I think you also got to be practical as well. There could be an annexation request on large lots, residential with 5 acres, and they want to
Right.
put 10 homes on
They're
40
gonna have
acres.
septic, they're
They
gonna
have
have.
water, and they're going to do individual septic tanks.
Right, that's
I don't
a
think
whole
anybody-
different
Well, I
situation.
ain't gonna say that. There's probably not an issue with that. So
Sure.
I think we got to be careful.
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
disagree.
To bind ourselves a certain way.
It could be that situation.
so that, yeah, I'm not recommending like a blanket policy
Yeah.
that we don't ever want anything, but I'm just wanting to clarify for, commissioners that staff cannot take that position.
I understand that. I was just saying, I don't want to, me personally, I don't want to take that step from them because the planning board knows a lot more than we do. And they know what R3 and all this stuff, because they've been in those classes. I haven't.
Mhm.
So I would like for them to see it, and whatever they recommend, let us look at it. But or have a meeting with the commission one-on-one and say, hey, this is what the board suggested. Do y'all want to go forward with it? I mean, I don't know, but I don't want to take that from them because they're here for a reason.
We cannot take that from them. It will
I
go.
want them to read it first. I don't want to come to me first and go back to them. I'm just saying it like that.
Yeah.
But I'm only one vote, so.
Other communities do it exactly the way we've laid it out in here. Where that best practice recommendation comes from, I mean, I do know, I've seen it, but I don't know.
Somebody at the state thought it was a good idea.
Yes, I don't know where it
So,
came from legally.
But that's not part of this resolution.
Not what's current.
Yeah.
So we need to talk about what we want to do tonight.
Yeah.
Whether we want to think on this, whether we want to approve it as written, whether we want to send some things back for just, hey, let's clean this up. So I'm looking for ideas from any of y'all. Yes, ma'am.
If I'm understanding correctly, she's saying that the city commission, tell the staff to
They're the ones that could direct staff to do that. We're not elected. We're not accountable to the voter. We're not elected. That's why we don't get final decision. We can make a recommendation and they go, yeah, we don't like your recommendation, and do what they want to, which is fine. I mean, that's their prerogative. They're the ones that are forward facing to the voter. So. Personally, I'd like to see this deferred for maybe a month, do some of the
I agree.
wordsmithing. Maybe that'll have time, something they could discuss it at the commission meeting. Also for how they feel about it. And, I don't care which way it goes, as long as they come here with the plan of services that we think's good.
So defer to look at that. Were there other things that y'all want us to do? The thing you're talking about R3?
Yeah,
think
maybe
that's
so. Just to look at that, just to give it a once over again. I mean, if that's the way we think it needs to be, then we can discuss that.
Were there any other sections that like we didn't present tonight that y'all have had issues with that you want us to look at?
Most of this is stuff has came up because we needed more tools to work with, and I think it addresses most all of that. And a lot of the wordsmithing really doesn't change what the old text says. It's just better wording.
Yeah.
Sure. So, I mean, it's the annexation process is the same. It just wasn't outlined. So, yeah. I mean, I've read through this thing a couple of times, and I may see something else next time I read through it, but
So no changes with the PUD right now.
I don't see
anything.
I don't see any reason to change anything with the PUD. I mean, I think that's a good tool.
Mhm. And
It's-
the PUD would pertain to the R3 too, right?
We were
Yeah,
pretending.
anything.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
that kind of.
I guess the risk there would be is we're going to establish a commercial district somewhere that's not downtown, and we could make it R3 because it's in a PUD. So, I mean, I could see where
Yeah.
it could be used in a way that
Right.
it would be perceived as not
Yeah.
good.
But you can also do
Right.
R3 without being a PUD.
That's right.
Right, correct. So, yeah,
PUD is
right.
That's-
overlay. It's added.
PUD will make sure they don't build an apartment complex when we've approved it for houses.
Yeah.
But if we
Right.
approve it for R3, down the road, they could put apartments there.
If it's just a regular R3,
Yeah.
correct, and not a PUD.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, like I say, these are all things to address things that have come up, and it gives us better tools. I think. I don't.
What the citizens have commented on and what y'all have, commented on as well, like the PUD gives you flexibility.
Yes.
Which is a good thing and a bad thing. Or it can be a
Yes,
good
yes.
thing, or it can be a bad thing,
Depending
depending
on
on how,
who's sitting here.
yeah,
How
depending on
she's-
how it's applied. But it does give a flexibility that y'all just don't have. PUD is new to me. I mean, I know the concept, but like I've never been in a city that used it. So there'll be a learning curve. I think it's kind of hard to administer for Mr. Brooks, but I do think it's cool that
Why?
He can handle it.
Used to it.
But he had it in Mount Pleasant. I mean, in Spring Hill, right?
But why does it make it more difficult?
Oh, it just puts more processes
Oh, okay.
in place. I mean, it's not, it does not cumbersome, but it does put more processes in place. More meetings, trying to come up with guidelines on what the developer will do, what the city is asking for. It protects the city.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing.
Honestly, and it follows the property. So, like you said, R3 zoning, single family, goes back 5 years from now. But no, that's not gonna work. The PUD says you have to put
Right.
R3 single family, and it can't be condos.
The only thing my concern, I know it's in here like this, but if we don't put it in the PUD and it gets on to R3, 5 years down the road, they can put apartments there. How do we protect ourselves from that?
I think you made a good point. It's not zoned R3. You still have to go through a rezoning process to be R3. This is just overlay to what's already currently zoned 1, 2, and 3. Right?
We could tell them if they want to make it
Now
R3
they can do
somewhere,
a
and that's
PUD
be a
and be
PUD.
creative, but it's
Well,
related
I would
to
think
I
that
mean, yeah,
zoning.
right. I mean,
Right.
yeah, if we're going,
So when we talked about this particular issue, so R3 is the problem, right? Like that, it's always been something that y'all didn't love because it's such a big district. Like it provides for such a variety of different,
What they can build there?
yeah, it can be apartments, it can be duplex, it could be single family homes that are just closer together, like it could be lots of different things. And the answer to if there is no PUD on it and it's just R3, then anything that's a permitted use in R3 is a permitted use on that property.
Mhm.
And that's what I beat into this discussion for you know, and that's why the PUD would counterbalance that, you know. So when you're looking at, instead of having the conversation of like, does it meet the criterion 4.7, which will now be 4.8, I didn't really love that would change my mind. But you could say, instead of going through that process, we're not comfortable with the whole thing being free, but like, what if we had a PUD on top of it to where we had
Where we can set some conditions on the R3. If we're gonna rezone it, this is what you're gonna do.
Can we make that mandatory if it does already?
This here, this is 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 here. And it travels with that. And I agree with what Mr. Burke's saying, it's gotta be managed properly too.
But once it's done, and we've got.
If it's managed
As long
properly.
as it's in the PUD.
you got what you bargained.
Yes.
Right.
You know, you can't
No
do
surprises.
contract planning, which is what people want to do. This is your way to do contract planning. And, you know, we've talked about like doing R4, you know,
Yeah,
right.
like that split R3 in half or something like that, you know, but after we have talked about this for years and came to the conclusion that the PUD was the best tool to help the R3 problem, you know, and help you all get where, and R2 sometimes too, you know, like.
Would you all entertain just a
Almost.
comment? I appreciate this. Before you close this thing down in the PUD, would you find and go to visit development that actually has 5? See what it, PUD is going to be to get that minimum 5,000. So know what you're looking at. This room's it's not a lot bigger than this room. My son's 2,000 square foot house in Franklin, 12,000. It's super tight. So if you go down to 5,000, you automatically do see character.
We're already at 5,000 on R3, so
Yeah, I know.
that doesn't change any of that. So
But
we'll
the PUD has
let's
5,000.
it does. We'll have to move on from that though.
Okay, I appreciate
It's R3 is already 5,000. We're not talking about changing that tonight.
Oh, no,
So
I didn't.
okay, so that's it.
Right, can I go through my list to
Sure.
see what you want? So, annexation, we're gonna look at the process, see if we need to make recommended changes for that. The large lot residential and agriculture, did y'all have any changes to that or any things you wanted us to look at?
I don't think so.
R1 low density to allow accessory dwelling units as permitted uses, good with that. The description for R3, we're gonna look at that. Provide some,
We don't have to, but that would be my preference. We haven't had a motion or anything
Yeah.
yet either. But yeah.
the removing the permitted uses from light industrial to heavy industrial, fine. No change, you're fine
All
with
the
the
rest of
grammar
it, yeah.
changes.
Right.
Adding definitions, all fine, tables and figures, fine, and then the irrigation and landscaping, those things that we didn't really talk about those, but,
There's people that are better experts than us
Okay.
on that.
all right.
That's would be my comment.
Me
I mean,
too.
that's
Okay.
why we have the consulting firms and stuff.
So bring it back next month?
Yes.
That would be,
Do you need a motion for that? or-
Yes.
Can I make a comment real quick?
Yeah.
So we had to post the agenda today for a study session that's on there, but when it's still gonna stay on there because it's posted in the time frame. But I just let them know that it was deferred.
it'd
From there,
probably be a
so-
good thing during it. They could talk about whether they want to see it first, since that's part of this also. I mean, it's already on the. So,
Thank you, Mr. Hunter.
yeah, well, then we'll be ready next month. I mean, you know, we get all the comments in for the next month. I mean, we want to have as good a product as we can, right?
I just want to make sure you knew, if you see it because it's already
Right,
posted
right.
that it is been deferred.
But I mean, y'all need to weigh in on that besides right here. So
I make a motion, we defer this to the next one.
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. What What else we got? We've already had comments from citizens. Anybody else want to speak on anything? All right, go right ahead. We got board and staff comments. Go right ahead.
Your board, go ahead.
Well, I wish Dale was here,
Me too.
but he's a huge loss to us, and just a great employee and a great person. And is he done?
Yeah, he's gone. So this week was, Monday was his last day, but, without going into great detail, he just wanted to get closer back to home, and I understand that. He's had some loss in his family, and they just wanted to get back that way.
I just want in the record that he was a wonderful employee and a wonderful part of this community. He will be missed. Not that he said a whole lot, but when he spoke, it was
Anything else? Motion for adjournment.
Make a motion to end the meeting.
Thank y'all for coming out tonight.